This video will begin to discuss right triangle trigonometry. The great thing about this transition with what we've done so far to this is approaching it with all the x's and y's will make this much easier, and memorizing this next part and working with it much more fluid when you move on to physics. Okay, so here they kind of explain what's going on. First, that I want you to notice, we're going to put a triangle inscribed in a circle of radius 1. This circle at the origin of radius 1, you know this already, is called the unit circle. All right, so what they're going to describe here, you see the triangle there, but here's the triangle. It's easier for me to point at things down here. I'm given an angle, and we have actual sides according to that angle. Like I could call this y, that's what we've been calling it, but we also call it opposite because it's opposite of the angle. So it's the opposite side. The adjacent just means next to. So if you need to write next to, please do. Next to. But it's just the x, right? And it's adjacent because it's next to the angle. And then the last thing, which we have been calling r, is our hypotenuse. And what we do is we call these O, A, and H. Adjacent, opposite, and hypotenuse. So let's write down our three ratios. And I'll show you why we use those words to help us out. So let me grab my marker here, and I'm going to do some color coding, okay? First, I'm going to do a big S, and then it's kind of weird, but I'm going to do an O and an H, and I'm going to fill these in. Okay, so sine of an angle is equal to opposite over hypotenuse, right? And how we memorize this is we use just three letters, S, O, H. And I'll give you an acronym to help you out with that. Okay, the next one we're going to have is cosine. And I'm going to write in all my red letters here. Right? Cosine of an angle is going to be adjacent over hypotenuse. Right? And that's C adjacent over, I put S, but H. Yeah. So that's cosine adjacent hypotenuse. First one was sine opposite hypotenuse. Next one is cosine adjacent hypotenuse. So it just tells us what's the ratio with them. So the next one, we'll do one more. Tangent. Right? And that's opposite over adjacent. Or T, O, A. All right, I have a way to memorize this. It's a little unorthodox. The way that I think most people do it is they do SOHCAHTOA. That's one way you could do it if you want to memorize just that blurb of sounds. Or the way that I was shown, and like I said, this is a bit unorthodox, but it did work for me, and I never forgot it after this. So some old hippie, I know, some old hippie caught another hippie tripping on acid. I know it's unorthodox. I know it's probably not the nicest thing to talk about, but it really does work, right? And I don't think it hurts anybody in the process. It really did help me get it down finally. This is the one that always bothered me with the SOHCAHTOA thing, because I don't know why I would want to say SOHCAHTOA. I don't know why, but I never could get past it, and then now I know it, but that's also because I teach trig twice a year. But some old hippie thing really lasted on. Maybe it's just because how immature I am, which is probably something rings true. But whatever works, right? We probably just don't want to walk around yelling at other professors and stuff. So I'll take the risk with the video. All right, so here it is. We memorized it like that straight, this line here. Let me highlight it. SOHCAHTOA, or some old hippie caught another hippie tripping on acid. And this gives us some kind of mnemonic device to memorize each one. So let's find sine. I don't know why this is printed weird. Sorry about that. Sine of this angle T, and they even gave us the ratios. Okay, so sine is some old hippie. So that's opposite over hypotenuse. So here's my T. Opposite is 7. Hypotenuse is 25. So it does work. I mean, it gets us what we need. But you could have also used y over r. I would rather you do y because it makes the most sense in our unit circle, and it's going to make the most sense in physics. But these ratios, these mnemonic devices do help. So cosine is C cot, another hippie. So that's adjacent over hypotenuse. So that's going to be 24 over 25. And then we have tangent. Tangent of t is tripping on acid. So that's opposite over hypotenuse. It's going to be, opposite over adjacent. So 7 over 24. And there are 3 trig functions. And we could find the other 3 trig functions, right? The cosecant, secant, and cotangent by just flipping these ratios over, finding the reciprocal. Okay,